All right, let's dive into a topic that I think is really fascinating. It's these cases where people just vanish. No trace. You know the ones I'm talking about. Those mysteries that kind of grab you.
Yeah.
No clues, no witnesses,
Yeah.
nothing.
It's like they just disappear
Mm,
off the face of the earth. And it's that lack of information, that's what makes it so interesting, so intriguing.
exactly. It's like the silence itself becomes a clue, doesn't it? And today we're going to be looking at, well, we've got some excerpts from this text here. And it goes deep into these disappearances, these really strange disappearances. And we're going to try to understand how this happens, why it happens, what are the challenges in figuring these things out. And we'll take a look at some of the most, some of the most baffling cases ever.
Yeah, it's like these cases, they really force us to think about what we know and what we don't know. I mean, we like to think we can explain things, but sometimes we just can't.
Yeah, exactly. It's like hitting a wall. But before we get too deep into the mystery here, we should probably define what we mean. When we say vanished without a trace,
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be more than just someone going missing, right?
Right, right. It's very specific. No physical evidence, no witnesses. Communication just stops all of a sudden. It's that combination that really sets these cases apart.
So, like, someone could be hiking, go off the trail, get lost, and never be found. That would fit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the text calls an accidental disappearance. And it shows you how hard these cases can be to solve. I mean, nature, it can be pretty unforgiving. Sometimes it just wipes away any trace of what happened.
It really makes you think twice about, going too far off the trail. But what about when there's something more sinister going on? The text mentions criminal involvement.
Yeah, that's a grim possibility we have to consider, like someone being taken and the person who took them, well, they try to hide the body, really hide it. Or think about human trafficking, people taken across borders and they just disappear.
Really makes you think about the dark side of things, huh? But the text also talks about people who disappear on purpose. Why would someone just erase their whole life, start over completely new?
It's a fascinating question. And the text talks about the psychology behind it. Imagine being so deep in debt or having a past you just can't escape. Maybe disappearing is the only way out, but it's a huge decision. Changes everything.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what goes through someone's mind to make a choice like that. And then there's the unexplained, the ones that lead to all those conspiracy theories.
Ah, yeah. The government cover-ups, alien abductions, all that. It's tempting to get caught up in those, but you have to remember, there's often no real proof.
Yeah, it's important to stick to the facts. But
Mhm.
speaking of facts, or the lack of them, why are these vanished without a trace cases so difficult to investigate? What makes them so tricky?
Time is a big factor. Unlike when there's obvious evidence of a crime, these disappearances don't always get that immediate attention.
The valuable time is lost right at the beginning.
Exactly. And without any physical evidence, investigators are basically starting from scratch, like a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
And you mentioned earlier how nature can wipe things clean. What about, like, people intentionally making things look like a disappearance?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Like someone trying to get out of a bad situation, maybe money problems or relationship gone wrong. They might try to make it look like they vanished to throw everyone off.
So it's like another layer of complexity to these cases. You peel back one layer and there's another one underneath.
Exactly. And then think about if someone disappears while traveling. Jurisdiction becomes a huge problem. Trying to get different agencies, maybe even different countries to work together, it's a mess.
Makes sense. But let's talk about some of those famous cases, the ones that have captivated people for years.
Yeah, there are some big ones. Amelia Earhart. She disappeared over the Pacific back in '37. Still a mystery. They searched and searched, but her plane was never found.
It's like she just vanished in thin air. The text also mentions the Solder children. That one's really sad and strange.
Yeah, 5 kids disappeared from their home in 1945 after a fire, but they never found any remains. Which makes you wonder, right? People start talking about abduction, cover-ups, all kinds of things. What should have been a tragic fire became a mystery.
And speaking of enduring mysteries, you can't forget about D.B. Cooper. Hijacked a plane in '71, parachuted out with all that ransom money. Gone.
Yeah, he's like a folk hero almost, a symbol of, I don't know, daring. But his story, it just captures the imagination, doesn't it?
These cases, they're all so different. but they all have that same element of the unknown. It's both fascinating and frustrating. But I'm curious, are there any cases where investigators, they just had that moment, that aha moment, where some tiny detail, it just unlocked everything?
Oh, yeah, there are. And that's what we're going to be looking at next. It's amazing, right? Sometimes it's the smallest thing, the tiniest clue, and boom, the whole case breaks open. Like finding that one puzzle piece, and suddenly you see the whole picture.
Yeah, our brains are strange like that, huh? We get all this information, but it's that one little detail, that one weird thing that makes everything click. Does the text have any examples, like, of that happening?
Oh, yeah. There's this case where this woman disappears from her home.
Mhm.
No sign of a struggle or anything. Investigators are totally stumped. And then they notice this smell, faint smell of chlorine.
Chlorine, like from a
Yeah.
pool.
Yeah.
What's that got to do with anything?
Well, turns out the husband, he said he didn't know anything about where she went, but he worked as a pool cleaner. And they found traces of chlorine on his clothes. He tried to cover it up with cologne, but that chlorine, it became a key piece of evidence.
Wow. Talk about attention to detail. It's crazy how even the most ordinary things can be a clue. But what about the cases where there are no big breakthroughs, no smoking gun? What happens when a case just goes cold?
Technically, missing person cases, they never really close. They might become inactive if there are no leads, but they're always open, officially.
That must give some hope to the families, right? That
Yeah.
maybe someday there will be answers.
Yeah, definitely. And there are a lot of dedicated people and groups out there. They work hard to keep these cold cases in the public eye, pushing for continued investigation, using all the new technology, forensics, to take another look at the evidence.
It's like those documentaries, where they reopen a case years later, DNA evidence, a new witness comes forward. Amazing to think that justice could still happen, even after all that time. We talked earlier about media attention. What role does that play in these investigations, especially cold cases?
The media, it can be a good thing and a bad thing. On the one hand, it can really help generate leads, keep a case in the public eye, a good news story or something on social media that can reach millions of people. And you never know, right? That one person might have the piece of information that breaks the case.
It's like crowdsourcing. But you said it's a double-edged sword. What's the bad side?
Well, the media, sometimes they sensationalize things, focus on the wrong details. It can really distort how the public sees the case, and that can hurt the investigation.
And for the families, it can be overwhelming, can't it? Having all that attention.
For sure. It's about finding a balance, using the media for good, but also protecting the people involved, protecting their privacy.
Speaking of protecting people, are there any special challenges when it comes to cases involving missing children?
Yeah, those are always tough. They're very sensitive, and time is critical. The younger the child, the more vulnerable they are. Investigators have to act fast.
I bet those cases, they really get to everyone involved, the investigators, the public.
Oh, yeah. It's all hands on deck. Everyone wants to find that child, bring them home safe.
It's just heartbreaking to think about. A kid out there alone and scared. Are there any misconceptions about missing person cases? Things you hear a lot that just aren't true.
One big one is that you have to wait 24 hours before reporting someone missing. Not true. If you're really worried about someone, report it right away. Time is crucial.
Right, every second counts. What else do people get wrong?
People think if an adult wants to disappear, there's nothing you can do. But even though adults can choose to go off the grid, if something seems off about their disappearance, you have to report it. Let the investigators decide.
It's better safe than sorry, right?
Exactly. And lastly, a lot of people think the police don't take these cases seriously. But that's not really true. I mean, sure, there are cases where more could have been done, but most investigators, they really care. They want to find those missing people, bring closure to the families.
Yeah, they're working behind the scenes, putting in the hours. But I'm curious, we talk about the challenges for investigators, but what about the emotional toll? It must be heavy dealing with these cases day in and day out.
It's true. It's often overlooked. These investigators, they see the worst of humanity every day, the dark side of things. It can be incredibly draining, emotionally, mentally.
Constantly dealing with trauma and not knowing. It must be hard to just switch off and go back to normal life.
Yeah, it is. They need support. Peer networks, therapy, anything to help them cope.
It's a good reminder that even the people helping others, they need help too, right? But I wanted to ask about the ethics involved in these cases. Are there any gray areas, dilemmas that investigators and families have to deal with?
Oh, for sure. Ethical considerations are always there. Like, take social media. It can be great for spreading the word, getting leads, but it can also spread misinformation. And that can really mess up an investigation.
So finding that balance is key. Using these tools for good, but avoiding the unintended
Oh.
consequences.
And then there's the question of how much information do you tell the public? Families, they want to share everything. They want to find their loved one. But investigators, they have to keep some things quiet to protect the case.
It's a tough line to walk, transparency versus discretion. But what about when remains are found? Are there any ethical issues there?
Great question. Identifying remains, it's crucial, but it can be tricky ethically. Like, imagine a body is found and it looks like it could be a specific missing person.
The family, they're hoping it's not them, but they also just want to know. It's a tough spot.
Exactly. Investigators, they need to identify the remains quickly and accurately, but they also have to be sensitive to the family. It's a difficult balance.
So, being sensitive, but also following the science, must be tough. We've covered a lot in this deep dive. It's chilling to hear about these disappearances, the challenges, the ethical dilemmas. As we wrap up this part of the conversation, what can regular people do to raise awareness about missing person cases?
It's a really important question. You might feel helpless, like there's nothing you can do. But there are things.
Well, let's hear them. I'm all ears.
First, just stay informed. Pay attention to the news. Follow those organizations that work on these cases. Learn about the issue.
Knowledge is power, right? The more we know, the better equipped we are to help.
Yeah.
So what else?
Share information, but do it responsibly. See a missing person alert from a reliable source. Share it. You never know, you could reach the right person.
Like casting a wide net, trying to catch that one crucial clue. And it's so easy to do. Anything else we can do?
Support those organizations, the ones that help the families. A lot of them depend on donations, volunteers. They do important work.
Yeah, that's a way to really make a difference. Directly help the people going through this.
For sure. And finally, speak up. Advocate for better policies. Contact your representatives. Support legislation. Even just talking about the issue in your community. It all helps.
Yeah, use your voice, use your actions to make things better. It might seem small, but together we can make a difference.
You're right. Every little bit helps. Every voice matters.
You know, thinking about working together, it makes me think about all the speculation, the conspiracy theories. When we don't have information, people start filling in the blanks themselves, no matter how crazy it sounds.
It's natural, right? Trying to make sense of things we don't understand. But the problem is speculation, it can actually hurt. It can sidetrack the investigation, spread lies, and that can really hurt the families. They're already going through so much.
It's like a train going off the tracks. Fear and uncertainty fuel it, and it just derails everything.
Exactly. We have to remember, behind every statistic, there's a story. A family that wants answers. A life that's been disrupted.
We have to approach these cases with empathy, with respect. Stick to the facts. Don't spread rumors.
Totally agree. Our words have power. We have to use them responsibly.
So, wrapping up this part of our deep dive, are there any new technologies, investigative techniques, that make you hopeful that we might solve more of these cases?
Oh, absolutely. There are some incredible advancements. They're changing how we investigate these disappearances.
It really feels like we're entering a new age when it comes to these investigations. It's exciting, but also reassuring. Like science and technology, they're giving us these new tools to uncover the truth. What are some of the advancements that stand out to you?
Well, DNA analysis has come a long way. It's so advanced now. We can identify remains that before impossible. We can take tiny pieces of bone, teeth, even hair, and get DNA. Compare it to databases of missing folks or their relatives.
It's incredible, like solving a puzzle with the smallest pieces imaginable. Does this mean we could solve those really old cases? The cold cases, some that have been mysteries for decades.
Oh, definitely. We're already seeing it happen, cold cases being solved because of DNA. Like imagine, they found a few bone fragments years ago. Maybe not enough for testing back then, or the tech wasn't good enough. Now, we can get DNA from those fragments, give those families some answers, finally.
It's like giving those people their voices back, letting them tell their stories after all this time. What other technologies are helping?
Cell phone and GPS tracking, that's a big one. Even if someone's phone is off, we can sometimes get clues about where they were last.
So even if they ditched their phone, investigators might still be able to figure out their movements, track where they went.
Exactly. And then there's AI, artificial intelligence, facial recognition software. They can analyze security footage. There's cameras everywhere now. Those algorithms can go through hours of video looking for someone specific or finding patterns we might miss.
It's like having a second set of eyes that never get tired. That could be a game changer. with all those cameras out there.
Totally. It's a powerful tool, helps investigators focus on the best leads. And don't forget about crowdsourcing, social media. Those platforms, they're amazing for getting the public involved, generating leads, raising awareness for cases that might have been forgotten.
It's incredible the way technology connects people and information. A simple share can reach millions. Maybe that one share has the missing piece of the puzzle. But technology aside, what else is giving you hope in this field? What else is changing?
I'm really encouraged by how everyone's working together now. Law enforcement, forensic experts, those advocacy groups, they're sharing information, resources, working as a team more than ever before.
So it's not just about the gadgets and gizmos, right? It's about the people, their dedication, their passion for solving these mysteries.
Absolutely. And law enforcement is getting better at understanding the trauma these families go through. They're using more compassionate approaches, offering more support.
It's good to hear. The families deserve to be treated with care and respect. But with all this progress, are there some cases you think will never be solved, despite everything we're learning, everything we're doing?
It's hard to say. I'm hopeful that we'll keep solving more cases. But some cases, yeah. Maybe the circumstances, the lack of evidence, it might mean they'll always be a mystery.
That's a tough thought, that even with all our knowledge, all our technology, some things might remain unknown.
It is. But even in those cases, we have to keep looking, keep asking questions, never lose hope. Searching for the truth, for justice, that's important. We owe it to the missing and their families to keep trying.
Yeah. A good reminder that even when things are uncertain, we can choose to stay curious, stay strong, and be kind. Well, this deep dive into missing persons cases has been, well, it's been eye-opening. It makes you realize how complex these mysteries are. And I have so much respect for the people who dedicate their lives to solving them.
I agree. These cases challenge us in so many ways, intellectually, emotionally, even ethically. They make us think about how fragile life is and the power of the unknown, but they also remind us what connects us as humans and the importance of hope.
As we wrap things up, I keep thinking about our listeners. They've been with us on this journey, exploring these dark and mysterious cases. What's the one thing you want them to take away from this?
Remember that you're part of this too. You can make a difference. Stay curious, stay informed, and speak up for those who can't. Even small things like sharing an alert or donating to an organization, they all matter. And don't underestimate yourself. What you see, what you know, could be the missing piece that helps bring someone home.
Yeah, that's a powerful message, a call to action for all of us. We might not solve every mystery, but we can approach these cases with empathy, with respect, and never forget those who have vanished.